there's a moment that arrives quietly. Not during failure, not during heartbreak, not even during loneliness. It arrives when you stop waiting. You stop checking who noticed your silence. You stop imagining someone will finally understand your exhaustion. You stop believing that one day someone will appear and carry part of your psychological weight for you. And in that moment, something terrifying happens. You begin to see people clearly. Carl Jung once wrote that one of the most painful things a human being can experience is the confrontation with their own shadow. But what most people never realize is that the shadow doesn't only contain violence, envy, or rage. Sometimes the shadow contains abandonment. The realization that deep down, you are still waiting to be rescued by friends, by love, by family, by recognition, by success, by someone. Most people build their personalities around this invisible expectation. They become agreeable because they hope kindness will eventually be rewarded. They become useful because usefulness creates temporary importance. They become emotionally available because they unconsciously believe devotion creates safety. But the world has a brutal way of exposing unconscious contracts. You help people during their worst moments, then watch them disappear once they recover. You stay loyal through chaos, then realize loyalty was never mutual. You listen to everyone's pain until one day you speak and the room becomes strangely silent. That silence changes you because you start understanding something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Attention is not love. Need is not loyalty. Closeness is not commitment. And human beings are masters at performing emotional depth when it benefits them psychologically. The disturbing part is not that people leave. The disturbing part is how normal it is. Jung believed that the persona, the social mask, is necessary for survival. Every person wears one. The supportive friend, the loyal partner, the protector, the empath, the misunderstood soul. But pressure reveals the difference between identity and performance. When you suffer long enough, masks begin slipping off people around you. Not because they're evil, but because most human connection is conditional beneath the surface. Some people only love the version of you that remains convenient for their self-image. The moment you become difficult, exhausted, ambitious, emotionally detached, or unpredictable, their energy changes, not always openly. Sometimes it happens in microscopic ways: delayed replies, less enthusiasm, subtle distance, a strange absence during the moments you need presence most. And this is where the psychological fracture begins. Because the child inside most adults still believes effort creates permanence. It doesn't. People don't resent your weakness. They resent the possibility that you might outgrow them. That realization alone has destroyed entire friendships. The darker truth is that many relationships survive not because of love, but because both people unconsciously agree to remain psychologically familiar to each other. The moment one person evolves, the unspoken contract breaks, and suddenly the support disappears. Not loudly, quietly, like a door being closed in another room. At first, you try to rationalize it. They're busy, they're stressed. Maybe you're overthinking, but the mind notices patterns long before the ego accepts them. You begin remembering strange moments you ignored before, the times your success made someone unusually quiet, the subtle discomfort people showed when you stopped being endlessly available, the irritation hidden beneath jokes once you started setting boundaries. Kindness without boundaries quietly teaches people how to use you. Most never realize this until exhaustion forces awareness onto them. Because the human mind is desperate to preserve emotional illusions, especially the illusion that reciprocity is automatic, that if you love deeply enough, sacrifice consistently enough, remain patient enough, eventually someone will do the same for you. But psychology does not work that way. Human beings are not naturally loyal to suffering. They are naturally drawn toward emotional benefit. That sentence sounds cold until you begin observing reality without sentimentality. Watch what happens when someone loses status. Watch how quickly attention disappears when usefulness fades. Watch how people slowly withdraw from those who can no longer entertain, provide, heal, or validate them psychologically. Even empathy often has conditions hidden beneath it. People love feeling compassionate. But few love carrying another person's darkness for long, and this realization creates a dangerous transformation inside certain individuals. They stop asking for help, not because they become strong, but because they finally understand the architecture of human behavior. The world praises independence partly because dependent people become inconvenient. That's why so many emotionally wounded people become hypercompetent. They learn to solve every problem alone because experience taught them that vulnerability creates exposure. So they adapt. They become calm, self-reliant, controlled. But beneath that composure is often a deeper psychological wound. The grief of realizing nobody was truly coming, not in the way they imagined, not with unconditional understanding, not with permanent loyalty, not with the emotional rescue fantasy they secretly carried since childhood. And Jung understood something terrifying about this stage of development. When illusions die, identity begins collapsing with them, because many people don't actually know who they are beyond the roles they perform for others. The caretaker, the achiever, the helper, the funny one, the emotionally mature one. Remove the audience and the personality starts trembling. This is why solitude becomes unbearable for many people. Silence strips away performance. There are no reactions to feed from, no validation loops, no emotional mirrors confirming who you are, only you. And most people have spent their entire lives avoiding direct contact with themselves, so they stay distracted. Constant noise, constant relationships, constant scrolling, constant stimulation. Anything to avoid hearing the quieter voice underneath everything. The voice asking uncomfortable questions. If nobody saved you, why are you still waiting? If people only know your mask, who are you beneath it? If love disappears when you change, was it ever love at all? Most relationships don't end when respect disappears. They end when awareness appears, and awareness is expensive. Because once you see human nature clearly, you can no longer participate in certain illusions innocently. You start noticing how often people speak emotionally but act strategically. How often affection is tied to control. How often admiration disappears once dependence ends. You begin understanding that many social bonds are maintained less by truth and more by mutual psychological comfort. This is usually the stage where a person becomes dangerous to the social world around them. Not violent, aware. And awareness changes the way you move through people. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop begging for understanding. You stop trying to force emotional reciprocity from those incapable of giving it. Something colder begins forming inside you, not hatred, distance. Because once you realize nobody is truly coming, another realization follows behind it like a shadow. Most of your suffering came from expectation. Expectation that people would think like you, care like you, sacrifice like you, remain loyal like you. But human beings interpret relationships through self-interest far more than morality. Even love is often filtered through psychological need. Some people love you because you make them feel important, some because you make them feel safe, some because you absorb their loneliness, some because your presence stabilizes their identity. But very few people love without unconscious extraction. That truth unsettles people because it threatens the fantasy of pure human connection. Yet if you observe closely enough, you'll notice something disturbing. Many people panic when you stop needing them emotionally, because dependence creates reassurance. The moment you emotionally detach, dynamics shift. Suddenly, people who ignored you become attentive again. People who took your presence for granted start sensing loss before loss actually happens. Human psychology values what feels uncertain. This is why emotionally unavailable people often attract intense attachment, why absence increases obsession, why withdrawal suddenly creates respect where constant availability failed. The mind chases what it cannot fully secure, and once you see this pattern, social interactions begin looking different, almost theatrical. You notice how many conversations are subtle negotiations for power, validation, attention, or emotional control. You notice how guilt becomes manipulation disguised as vulnerability, how praise becomes a method of influence, how weakness can become strategy, not consciously in every case, but unconsciously, constantly. Jung believed that until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people never make the unconscious conscious, so they repeat the same relational cycles forever. They trust too quickly, overgive too early, confuse attention with sincerity, confuse chemistry with compatibility, confuse being desired with being valued. Then they wonder why betrayal keeps arriving wearing different faces. The patterns remain because the inner wound remains unseen. A person abandoned emotionally in childhood may unconsciously spend adulthood trying to earn permanence from emotionally unavailable people. A person who only received affection through achievement may become addicted to success without understanding why emptiness still follows them afterward. The unconscious always tries to recreate unresolved pain until awareness interrupts the cycle. And awareness is brutal. Because eventually you realize some of your deepest emotional attachments were never love. They were attempts to repair old psychological fractures through other people. That realization can hollow a person out for a while, especially when you understand how much energy you spent trying to become worthy of care that should have existed naturally. The child inside you believed that if you became good enough, useful enough, intelligent enough, attractive enough, patient enough, someone would finally stay. But adulthood reveals a colder reality. People stay when staying benefits their psychology, and when it no longer does, many slowly disappear while pretending nothing changed. Not every person, but enough to change the way you see humanity forever. After that realization, something strange begins happening inside you. You become quieter, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally understand how rarely people listen without filtering your words through their own needs, insecurities, and projections. Most conversations are not exchanges. They are collisions between identities. One person speaks to feel understood. The other listens to protect their self-image. And somewhere in between, truth suffocates. Once you notice this, loneliness changes form. It no longer feels like the absence of people. It feels like the absence of genuine recognition. You can sit in a crowded room and still feel psychologically invisible. And the unsettling part is that many people around you feel the same way while pretending otherwise. That's why modern life feels emotionally hollow despite constant connection. Everyone is expressing themselves, but very few are truly revealing themselves. Personas interact, masks communicate, carefully edited identities maintain carefully edited relationships. Meanwhile, the real self remains buried underneath adaptation. Jung understood that the persona becomes dangerous when a person mistakes it for their true identity, because then every criticism feels like psychological death. Every rejection feels catastrophic. Every loss of status feels unbearable. So people protect the mask at all costs. They suppress parts of themselves to remain accepted, hide emotions to remain respected, pretend confidence to avoid humiliation, pretend happiness to avoid becoming inconvenient, and over time the performance becomes automatic. This is why some people suddenly break down years later without understanding why. Their soul became exhausted from carrying an identity built for survival instead of truth. The terrifying thing about self-awareness is that it slowly destroys the emotional anesthesia you once lived under. You stop romanticizing people so easily. You stop believing words without patterns. You stop confusing charm with character. And perhaps most painfully, you stop seeing yourself as the innocent victim in every story. Because shadow work eventually turns inward, you begin noticing your own manipulations, your own need for validation, your own hidden desire to be chosen, admired, reassured, rescued. That confrontation changes everything. Because the mind loves exposing darkness in others while remaining blind to its own. Some people help others because they secretly need to feel indispensable. Some act emotionally detached because vulnerability terrifies them. Some call themselves nice while quietly keeping score of everything they give. The shadow hides motives beneath morality, and once you start seeing your own unconscious patterns, you understand why Jung believed self-knowledge was both liberation and burden. Because awareness removes excuses, you can no longer blame life for patterns you refuse to confront. You begin realizing that part of your suffering came not only from what others did to you, but from what you kept allowing. You ignored red flags because loneliness made attention feel valuable. You tolerated disrespect because confrontation threatened abandonment. You kept overextending yourself because being needed temporarily protected you from feeling empty. Awareness strips the emotional glamour from these behaviors. Suddenly your past looks different, not tragic, predictable. And that realization can be deeply unsettling. Because it forces you to confront the possibility that much of human behavior is driven less by conscious choice and more by unconscious compensation. People don't just pursue love, they pursue relief from themselves. And once you understand that, the entire social world begins rearranging itself in your mind. You stop asking, who loves me? You start asking, who needs me to remain a certain version of myself? That question exposes things people spend years trying not to see. Some friendships survive only because you stay smaller than your potential. Some relationships survive only because you remain emotionally predictable. Some families remain peaceful only while you continue carrying the role assigned to you years ago. The moment you change, tension appears. Not because growth is wrong, but because growth disrupts psychological equilibrium. People become attached to the identity they built around your identity. When you evolve, their internal structure shakes with it. Suddenly, the reliable one starts withdrawing. The quiet one becomes assertive. The giver stops overextending. The people pleaser develops boundaries, and boundaries reveal truths faster than conflict ever will. Because the moment access becomes limited, hidden entitlement surfaces immediately. Some people never loved your soul. They loved their access to you. That realization hardens something deep inside a person, not in a cruel way, in a surgical way. You begin separating genuine connection from emotional dependency. You stop confusing constant contact with loyalty. You stop measuring love through intensity alone, because intensity can exist without depth. In fact, some of the most intense relationships are built entirely on unresolved trauma patterns. Two wounded people unconsciously trying to complete psychological fractures through each other. One craves reassurance, the other craves control. One fears abandonment, the other fears vulnerability. Together they call the chaos love, until eventually the unconscious turns the relationship into a battlefield. Jung understood that what remains unconscious controls behavior from beneath awareness. That's why people sabotage things they consciously want. Why they repeat painful cycles while promising themselves they'll change. The conscious mind speaks one language. The shadow speaks another. And the shadow is patient. It waits beneath every attraction, every insecurity, every irrational emotional reaction. A simple delayed text suddenly feels personal. A shift in tone feels threatening. Distance triggers panic. Success triggers guilt. Rejection triggers rage. People think these reactions come from the present moment. Most of the time, they come from accumulated psychological history buried underneath it. That's why certain experiences hit disproportionately hard. They awaken old emotional wounds that were never truly resolved. And the dangerous part is this. Most people never investigate their reactions deeply enough to understand them. So they project. They accuse others of the chaos originating inside themselves. They blame fate, relationships, bad luck, betrayal, society. Anything except the unconscious patterns directing their behavior from the shadows. Because confronting the shadow means admitting something deeply uncomfortable. You are not entirely who you think you are. Part of you is constructed from adaptation. Part from fear, part from suppressed resentment, part from unmet needs disguised as personality. Even ambition can become compensation. Some people chase success not because they love achievement, but because they believe status will finally make them worthy of love, attention, or respect. And no amount of external success can permanently satisfy an internal wound. That's why some people achieve everything they wanted and still feel strangely empty afterward. The goal was never the goal. It was emotional escape. Eventually, the realization becomes impossible to avoid. Nobody is coming to save you from yourself. Not love, not success, not admiration, not money, not validation. Because the deepest forms of suffering are internal structures, and external rewards can distract those structures, but rarely dissolve them. That's why some people ruin healthy relationships after finally receiving genuine love. Why others sabotage opportunities they prayed for years to obtain. Why peace itself can start feeling uncomfortable to a nervous system trained in emotional chaos. The unconscious always tries to return to what feels psychologically familiar, even when familiarity hurts. Especially when familiarity hurts. This is the part most people resist hearing. Healing is not becoming happier. Healing is becoming conscious. And consciousness is uncomfortable because it removes the fantasy that life will eventually transform without confrontation. It forces you to see the mechanics beneath your behavior with brutal clarity. You begin noticing how often fear disguised itself as personality. I'm independent. Or maybe you became emotionally self-contained because trust once humiliated you. I don't need anyone. Or maybe needing people once made you feel powerless. I'm just ambitious. Or maybe achievement became the only reliable source of worth your mind could find. The ego creates narratives to protect itself from painful truths, and society rewards many of those narratives because wounded productivity still benefits the world around you. A person who overworks because they feel internally empty is often praised. A person who suppresses emotion is called mature. A person who sacrifices themselves constantly is admired for being selfless. But admiration does not heal fragmentation. It often deepens it. Because the more rewarded the mask becomes, the harder it is to remove. This is why many people secretly fear solitude. Solitude removes distraction, and distraction is modern anesthesia. Without noise, the psyche starts surfacing buried material. Regret, envy, shame, dependency, loneliness, fear of insignificance. Things people spend years outrunning through stimulation, relationships, entertainment, substances, achievement, or constant movement. But eventually life corners everyone into stillness somehow. Loss, failure, isolation, exhaustion. And in that stillness, the truth becomes difficult to avoid. You have been waiting for permission to become who you already needed to be. Stronger boundaries, greater self-respect, emotional discipline, awareness, responsibility for your own mind. Nobody was coming to hand these things to you. And perhaps that realization sounds depressing at first, until another realization emerges beneath it. If nobody is coming, then nobody is stopping you either. No savior is arriving. But no jailer is truly holding the keys. Most psychological prisons are internalized long before they become external realities. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of failure, fear of being misunderstood, invisible chains directing human behavior every single day. People remain silent to avoid conflict, remain small to avoid envy, remain agreeable to avoid loneliness. Entire personalities built around unconscious survival strategies, and the terrifying thing is how normal it all looks. Society rarely rewards authenticity immediately. It rewards predictability, compliance, emotional convenience. That's why authentic people often feel isolated during transformation. They stop participating in unconscious games everyone else still mistakes for normality. And once you fully see those games, you cannot unsee them. After that, life becomes strangely quiet. Not externally, internally. The endless psychological bargaining starts fading away. You stop negotiating your worth through usefulness. Stop chasing reassurance from emotionally inconsistent people. Stop trying to decode mixed signals from those who benefit from keeping you uncertain. Because uncertainty itself is power. The person who controls emotional clarity often controls the dynamic. That's why some people give affection inconsistently. Why they become warm once you withdraw and distant once you return. Why validation is sometimes distributed carefully instead of honestly. Intermittent reinforcement creates obsession far more effectively than constant attention ever could. Casinos understand this. Social media understands this. And unconsciously, many human beings understand this too, not always maliciously, but instinctively. The human mind values what feels difficult to secure, which means many people spend years chasing emotional experiences that continuously destabilize them, mistaking anxiety for passion and unpredictability for depth. But eventually, awareness interrupts the addiction. You begin seeing emotional chaos for what it really is, a nervous system searching for familiar suffering. And that changes the way you love, not colder, cleaner. You stop trying to rescue people committed to drowning in their own patterns. You stop believing potential matters more than behavior. You stop romanticizing pain simply because it feels intense. Because intensity is not transformation. Suffering does not automatically create wisdom. Sometimes it only creates repetition. There are people who have suffered for decades and learned nothing except how to spread that suffering into everyone around them. Pain can deepen consciousness or deepen bitterness. The difference is awareness, and awareness demands something difficult from every human being: responsibility. Not for everything that happened to you, but for what continues through you. That distinction changes lives, because many people unconsciously become extensions of the very wounds they hate. Betrayed people become emotionally guarded until they create loneliness around themselves. Neglected people become addicted to validation. Controlled people become obsessed with controlling others. The shadow reproduces itself through unconscious behavior. And most people never interrupt the cycle because blaming others feels psychologically safer than confronting internal patterns. But the moment you stop waiting for rescue, something begins changing inside you. You become less emotionally negotiable. You stop collapsing every time someone withdraws approval. You stop panicking when misunderstood. You stop explaining your boundaries to people determined not to respect them anyway. A different kind of stability emerges. Not the fragile confidence built on praise, a quieter one, the kind built from surviving your own mind. Because eventually you realize that some of the darkest nights of your life were never witnessed fully by anyone else. No audience saw the internal wars. No applause followed the psychological battles you fought silently while still functioning externally. And yet you survived them. Alone. That realization carries a strange form of power. Not ego, evidence. Evidence that you are more psychologically resilient than the frightened version of yourself once believed. But resilience changes people. The person who truly understands abandonment often stops romanticizing human permanence. They appreciate connection without worshipping it, love without psychologically collapsing into it, care without turning it into dependency. Because they finally understand something most people spend years resisting. Everything human is temporary. Attention fades, roles change, people evolve, feelings shift, attachments dissolve. And beneath all of it, life keeps moving with terrifying indifference. That indifference is what breaks some people and frees others, because once you stop expecting life to protect you from pain, betrayal, loneliness, or uncertainty, you stop living in constant negotiation with reality. You begin seeing existence more clearly. No hidden guarantees, no permanent emotional safety, no final moment where fear disappears forever. Just consciousness moving through temporary experiences, trying to create meaning while surrounded by impermanence. At first, that realization feels cold, then strangely liberating, because if nothing is guaranteed, then pretending becomes unnecessary. You no longer need to exhaust yourself performing perfection. You no longer need universal approval before trusting your own mind. You no longer need to cling desperately to every relationship out of fear that losing people means losing yourself. Most people fear abandonment because they never built an identity outside attachment. But once you survive enough psychological loss, something changes. You discover that the self can exist independently of who stays, and that discovery alters the entire structure of your perception. Rejection stops feeling like annihilation. Loneliness stops feeling like evidence of worthlessness. Silence stops feeling threatening. You begin understanding that much of human suffering comes not from reality itself, but from resistance to reality. People resist endings, resist change, resist uncertainty, resist seeing others clearly, resist seeing themselves clearly most of all, because truth dismantles comforting illusions. And illusions are addictive. The illusion that everyone who says, "I care," truly does. The illusion that effort guarantees reciprocity. The illusion that self-sacrifice eventually forces appreciation. The illusion that someone else will eventually arrive and repair the emptiness within you. But nobody can permanently repair what you refuse to confront consciously. That is the shadow's final lesson. The parts of yourself you avoid do not disappear. They wait, quietly influencing your choices, relationships, fears, attractions, insecurities, ambitions, and emotional reactions from beneath awareness. Ignored loneliness becomes dependency. Ignored insecurity becomes arrogance. Ignored pain becomes cruelty. Ignored fear becomes control. The unconscious always expresses itself somehow, which means the greatest danger is not darkness itself, it is unconscious darkness. And perhaps this is why so many people remain psychologically fragmented their entire lives, because facing yourself completely requires the death of comforting identities, the victim, the savior, the innocent one, the endlessly misunderstood soul. Eventually, you must confront the possibility that you are both wounded and responsible, both hurt and capable of hurting others, both conscious and deeply blind. That contradiction is what makes human beings difficult to understand, and dangerous, especially to themselves. The strange thing is, once you truly accept that nobody is coming, life becomes more honest. Relationships become clearer. Boundaries become easier. Your energy stops leaking into fantasies about being rescued, chosen, validated, or finally understood perfectly by another person. You stop searching for someone to complete you, because you finally realize completeness was never the point. Consciousness was to see yourself clearly, to see others clearly, to stop confusing emotional dependency with love, to stop abandoning yourself in exchange for temporary connection. And in the end, perhaps adulthood begins the day you understand this. Nobody is coming to save you from your mind. But if you are willing to confront the darkness inside it honestly, you may no longer need saving at all. And most people will spend their entire lives avoiding that realization. And maybe that is the final separation between people. Some spend their entire lives waiting for someone to arrive and make them whole. Others sit alone in the silence long enough to realize the emptiness was never asking to be filled. It was asking to be understood. Because the moment you stop searching for rescue, you start seeing reality without emotional sedation. The masks, the projections, the unconscious patterns controlling entire lives from the shadows. And once you truly see it, something irreversible happens. You stop fearing loneliness the same way. Because loneliness no longer feels like punishment. It feels like clarity, a place where illusions go to die. And perhaps that's why so few people ever reach this stage, because most would rather remain comforted than conscious. They would rather protect the fantasy than confront the truth that human beings are often driven more by unconscious need than love, more by fear than logic, more by self-preservation than loyalty, including themselves, especially themselves. So eventually, you stop waiting for footsteps outside the door. You become the person who opens it yourself. And the strangest part is, that's the exact moment